The message arrived without warning. Not as an alert. Not as a system failure. It simply replaced everything. Every screen on Earth, phones, city billboards, orbital traffic displays, medical monitors, went black for half a second. Then a symbol appeared. Angular. Ancient. Unmistakably alien. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Concord spoke directly to humanity. And it was not the voice of peace. A towering figure filled the screen, encased in ceremonial armor that looked grown rather than built. Its eyes glowed a dull amber, unblinking, predatory. When it spoke, the sound bypassed translation delays. The words landed fully formed in every human language at once. Species designation human. This is a formal declaration of terminal conflict. Across Earth, conversation stopped mid-sentence. Aircraft held steady in the sky. A surgeon's hands froze above an open chest. Children stared at screens they were too young to understand. The figure continued, voice calm, almost bored. For 1,000 cycles you were permitted peace. Isolation. Survival. You have used this time, creatively. The pause carried weight. The Krell Dominion no longer finds that acceptable. In a quiet room buried beneath layers of rock and shielding, Admiral Elias Kane watched without moving. The command chamber of Earth Defense Directorate was not dramatic. No flashing lights. No panicked officers. Just a wide circular table, dark walls, and a ceiling of slow-moving data projections. The kind of room designed by people who hated theatrics and trusted preparation. Kane folded his hands, listening. You were spared extinction, the alien continued, because you were deemed manageable. Contained. Your aggression muted by comfort. Your ambition softened by time. A faint exhale escaped Kane's nose. Almost a laugh. He stopped it before it became one. The figure leaned forward slightly, as if confiding a secret. We were wrong. Around the table, no one spoke. Not because they were afraid, because they were waiting. Timing mattered. The alien raised a clawed hand. Star maps flared into view behind it. The Sol system pulsed at the center like a target. At this moment, Krell expeditionary fleets are entering your system. Resistance is not expected. Compliance is irrelevant. The broadcast ended. Just like that. The screens returned to normal. Traffic resumed. The world inhaled. For 3 seconds, Earth was silent. Then noise flooded back in, questions, shouting, emergency calls, analysts yelling into headsets, news anchors scrambling for words they didn't have yet. In the command chamber, Kane finally leaned back in his chair. Well, he said, voice dry. That answers the if. A few restrained chuckles rippled around the table. Not humor. Recognition. Vice Admiral Noor Patel tapped her console. All fleets confirmed. Entry vectors matched the projection models. They're not bluffing. Of course they're not, Kane replied. Vorthrex doesn't bluff. Patel glanced up. You sound like you've met him. Not personally, Kane said. But I've studied his kind. Ritualists. They announce storms instead of checking if the roof is reinforced. He looked around the table. Faces calm. Focused. No fear. No bravado. Status? General Ramirez answered first. Civilian panic minimal so far. They're confused. Not screaming yet. They won't, Kane said. We trained them better than that. A younger officer hesitated. Sir, permission to ask? Kane nodded. Why now? The officer said. After 1,000 years? Kane's eyes stayed on the star map. Because we stopped looking small. No one argued. For centuries, humanity had obeyed every restriction. No expansion beyond permitted systems. No visible military buildup. No experimental drives tested in shared space. They had smiled politely at galactic summits and accepted their quiet corner of the cosmos. They had also learned. Outer defenses? Kane asked. Patel didn't look pleased. They'll breach within minutes. Good, Kane said. A few heads turned. He raised a hand before anyone spoke. Let them. Phase 1 requires observation. We need clean data, not assumptions. Ramirez frowned. We're allowing losses. We're allowing controlled losses. Kane corrected. There's a difference. A new alert chimed softly. Not an alarm. Just information. Krell fleet signatures appeared at the edge of the Sol system. Massive. Disciplined. Overwhelming by any conventional metric. The galaxy was watching. Hidden relays across Concord space carried the feed. Ancient species observed with detached curiosity. Some with satisfaction. Others with regret. Humans had always been an unresolved variable. On the bridge of the lead Krell dreadnought, High Executive Vorthrex watched the same data with open contempt. No response, an aide reported. Human defenses remained dormant. Vorthrex's mandibles twitched in something like a smile. As predicted. They mistake silence for dignity. Shall we proceed with orbital sterilization protocols? Not yet, Vorthrex said. First, a demonstration. Fear teaches faster than annihilation. Back on Earth, Kane watched the fleets advance. They still think we're afraid, Patel said quietly. Kane nodded. They've confused restraint with surrender. He stood, smoothing the front of his uniform. Begin archival release, he said. A technician blinked. Sir? Let command see the old files, Kane said. Remind everyone why we stopped expanding. Data screens shifted. Ancient footage appeared, grainy records from humanity's first interstellar wars. Burned colonies. Improvised fleets. Victories bought with terrible costs. Not propaganda. History. Kane turned back to the main display as the first Krell weapons fired. Light flared in the outer system. Human listening posts vanished in clean, precise bursts. No counterfire. News feeds screamed. Commentators speculated. Some prayed. Some cursed. In the command chamber, no one moved. Record everything, Kane said. Every frequency. Every delay. Every assumption they make. Patel's jaw tightened. They think this is easy. Kane allowed himself a thin smile. That, he said, is the most dangerous thought in the universe. As the Krell fleets advanced deeper into Sol space, humanity remained quiet. Not because it had nothing to say, but because it was finally time to listen. Right before reminding the galaxy what humans did best when they were underestimated. The first human station died quietly. No last transmission. No heroic final stand. One moment it was there, an aging sensor array orbiting beyond Neptune, crewed by 6 technicians and a rotating AI overseer. Then it vanished in a tight, surgical flash. Krell weapons were efficient. No spectacle. Just erasure. Across the Sol system, similar points of light winked out. On Earth, panic finally surfaced, not as chaos, but as pressure. News anchors struggled to keep voices steady. Military analysts speculated wildly. Old footage of human warships looped on screens, all of it outdated, all of it irrelevant. Inside Earth Defense Command, none of that mattered. Confirm loss, Admiral Kane said. Confirmed, Patel replied. Her voice didn't change. Post-Neptune ring. All personnel presumed dead. Kane nodded once. Log it. Continue recording? A junior officer shifted uneasily. Sir, they're cutting us apart. Yes, Kane said. Exactly as planned. The Krell fleets moved with practiced confidence, advancing in rigid formations, weapons cycling through rehearsed firing patterns. They didn't rush. They didn't improvise. Their doctrine favored certainty over speed, overwhelming force applied predictably, crushing resistance before it could adapt. Humanity watched every second. Power signatures mapped, Patel said. Weapon discharge intervals consistent across all dreadnoughts. They're synchronized, Ramirez added. Command hierarchy is centralized. Too centralized. Kane's gaze stayed on the tactical projection. They've never needed flexibility. No one ever survived long enough to punish it. Another human outpost vanished near Uranus. This one fired back, just once. A weak, defiant pulse that barely scratched a Krell escort. The Krell response was immediate and absolute. Reaction time logged, Patel said. They overcommit. Kane smiled faintly. They always do when offended. In the darkness between planets, something unseen adjusted its position. The Krell advance reached the outer asteroid belts within hours. Resistance remained minimal. Human defenses appeared scattered, obsolete, almost careless. Automated turrets fired late. Shield grids flickered. Entire platforms powered down as if abandoned in haste. On the Krell command deck, satisfaction spread. Humans are collapsing inward, an aide reported. Their defenses lack cohesion. High Executor Vorthrex observed in silence. He studied patterns the way priests studied omens. They are withdrawing too cleanly, he said at last. The aide hesitated. Executor? Fear creates chaos, Vorthrex continued. This is orderly. Another officer interjected. Perhaps they are simply unprepared. Vorthrex did not answer immediately. He watched as another human station self-destructed rather than be captured, scattering debris that drifted uselessly into space. Advance, he said. Press them harder. Back on Earth, Kane received the update. They've taken the bait, Patel said. Good, Kane replied. Initiate Phase 1B. A quiet command rippled outward, invisible to civilian networks, buried beneath layers of redundant encryption. Across the Sol system, dormant systems stirred. Not weapons. Not yet. Eyes. Human probes, ancient, patient things launched centuries ago, adjusted their angles. Dust-sized sensors embedded in asteroid fields activated. Stealth platforms long dismissed as defunct began feeding data into hidden relays. The Krell did not notice. Their sensors were excellent. Their assumptions were fatal. They're scanning for ships, Ramirez said. Not for absence. Kane clasped his hands behind his back. They believe war is about presence. We learned it's about timing. The first human counteraction did not involve fire. It involved silence. As Krell fleets crossed a predefined threshold near Saturn's orbit, their communications lagged, just a fraction of a second. Orders arrived slightly out of sequence. Targeting data mismatched firing solutions. Minor errors. Annoyances. Executor, an officer reported. We're experiencing signal degradation. Interference? Vorthrex asked. No identifiable source. Compensate. They did. Krell systems were robust. They adapted within seconds. The degradation returned elsewhere. Not constant. Not obvious. Deliberate. In Earth Defense Command, Patel watched the data streams converge. They're compensating manually now, she said. Burning processing power. Let them, Kane said. Fatigue precedes mistakes. The Krell fired again, annihilating a human relay near Jupiter. The explosion was brighter than the others, debris scattering farther. That one mattered, Ramirez muttered. Kane shook his head. No. That one was supposed to hurt. Ramirez looked at him. You can't teach predators without blood, Kane said quietly. Hours passed. Losses mounted. Humanity did not strike back, not openly. Then something changed. A Krell cruiser near the edge of the formation drifted out of alignment. No damage visible. No alarms triggered. It simply slowed. Engine malfunction? An officer suggested. Impossible, Vorthrex said. Run diagnostics. The cruiser did not respond. Moments later, a second ship deviated. Then a third. Confusion rippled through the Krell formation. Executor, an aide said, voice tight. We're losing formation coherence. Vorthrex's mandibles flared. Human action? Negative. No weapon discharge detected. On Earth, Kane watched the same moment unfold. Phase 1 complete, Patel said. They've noticed. Excellent, Kane replied. Begin Phase 2 observation. Ramirez frowned. We're still not firing. Kane met his eyes. Because once we do, there's no misunderstanding left. Another Krell vessel went dark, not destroyed, simply inert. Drifting. Humanity, Vorthrex hissed, staring at the tactical display, is doing something. Yes, Kane said softly, though no one on the Krell bridge could hear him. We're letting them feel it. The galaxy watched as the unstoppable advance slowed, not stopped, not broken, but disrupted. No grand explosions. No triumphant charges. Just uncertainty, spreading like a crack through something ancient and rigid. And for the first time since the war began, the Krell Dominion hesitated. That hesitation was the opening humanity had been waiting for. The moment the Krell fleets hesitated, humanity moved. Not with a roar. With precision. Across the Sol system, the darkness itself seemed to rearrange. Inert debris altered course. Silent shadows unfolded into geometry too deliberate to be natural. Space filled with vectors the Krell had never learned to fear, because no one had ever used them this way. Phase 2 complete, Vice Admiral Patel said. They're blind in 3 spectrums and guessing in the rest. Admiral Kane nodded. Then it's time. He tapped a single command. Phase 3. Limited disclosure. The first human weapon fired without light or sound. A Krell command cruiser, one of the oldest, its hull layered with ceremonial plating older than Earth's first cities, lost gravity. Not fluctuated. Not destabilized. Gone. Crew and equipment slammed against bulkheads as internal mass fields collapsed in sequence. Consoles shattered. Beings bred for war were reduced to confusion and pain in a span of seconds. Executor! An aide shouted on the Krell bridge. We've lost internal control on vessel Karveth. Before Vorthrex could respond, 3 more ships reported identical failures. What is causing this? He demanded. No one answered. Because no one knew. Humanity's counteroffensive did not target hulls. It targeted assumptions. Localized space-time distortions folded firing solutions into nonsense. Autonomous human constructs, small, angular, uncrewed, slipped through sensor nets by exploiting gaps no one had believed exploitable. Krell point defenses tracked them perfectly and still failed to hit them, because the objects were never where predictions said they should be. They're not fighting us, a Krell tactician whispered. They're unmaking us. On Earth, the command chamber remained composed. Civilian casualties? Kane asked. Minimal, Ramirez replied. They're focusing everything away from inhabited zones. Kane allowed himself a breath. Good. We don't need graves to make a point. Across the galaxy, observers leaned closer to their feeds. The Concord had seen wars before. They had never seen restraint used like a weapon. Krell escorts began to vanish, not explode, not break apart, but simply cease contributing to the battle. Power drained. Navigation failed. Crews trapped inside intact hulls, alive and helpless. They're disabling us without killing us, an aide said, disbelief edging his voice. Vorthrex stared at the tactical display, mandibles rigid. They are humiliating us. Yes, the aide replied quietly. On purpose. Human war doctrine unfolded like a lesson long prepared. Human fleets emerged last. They did not charge. They positioned. Sleek vessels with no visible armament arranged themselves into layered formations that defied conventional engagement logic. Some held position. Others drifted. A few accelerated outward, away from the fight entirely. Why are they retreating? A Krell officer demanded. They aren't, Vorthrex said slowly. They're shaping the battlefield. Then the kinetic web activated. Invisible lines of intersecting trajectories turned space into a minefield of inevitability. Krell ships that attempted to maneuver found themselves intersecting paths with objects traveling at relativistic speed, unpowered, untracked, unstoppable. One dreadnought lost half its mass without warning. Another split cleanly along an axis that should not have existed. The Krell finally fired in desperation. Human ships vanished from targeting solutions as if they had never been there. Executor, an aide said, voice breaking. We cannot predict them. Vorthrex's gaze hardened. That, he said, was always their sin. A channel request appeared on the Krell command deck. Source Earth. Vorthrex hesitated only a moment before accepting. Admiral Kane's face filled the display. No armor. No dramatic lighting. Just a tired man in a dark uniform. High Executor Vorthrex, Kane said. You declared war. I'm responding. You hide behind tricks. Vorthrex snarled. Face us. Kane tilted his head. We are facing you. You just don't recognize the posture. You were given peace, Vorthrex said. You repaid it with deception. No, Kane replied evenly. We repaid it with preparation. He gestured off-screen. The display shifted, showing archived footage, human colonies burning, ships shattered, civilians running from skies filled with unfamiliar weapons. You told yourselves we were dangerous because we were emotional, Kane continued. Because we adapt too fast. Because we don't follow your patterns. Vorthrex said nothing. So you isolated us, Kane said. Hope time would dull us. A pause. It didn't. Behind Kane, data streams rolled, losses tallied, systems stabilizing, human fleets holding position with terrifying calm. You could have left us alone, Kane said. We would have stayed in our corner. We're very good at minding our own business. Vorthrex's mandibles flexed. And now, Kane said, you remind us why we learned to fight this way. He leaned closer to the camera. This ends when you withdraw. Not when you're destroyed. That choice is still yours. Silence stretched. Around them, the Krell Dominion's once proud armada was trapped, crippled but intact, surrounded by forces it could neither read nor counter. Vorthrex looked away from the screen, at the remnants of his fleet. For 1,000 years, he said quietly, we told ourselves humanity was a problem solved. Kane did not interrupt. We were wrong, Vorthrex finished. The channel closed. Minutes later, Krell vessels began retreat protocols, slowly, carefully, as if fearing the dark itself. Across the Concord, shock rippled. Humanity did not pursue. They held position until the last Krell signature vanished beyond Sol's edge. In Earth Defense Command, the room exhaled as one. Patel broke the silence. They're gone. Kane closed his eyes for a brief moment. Then he straightened. Transmit to the Concord, he said. Full transparency. No threats. Ramirez raised an eyebrow. What do we say? Kane considered. Tell them this, he said. We honored the peace. We prepared for the breach. We will not chase power, but we will not surrender survival. He paused. And tell them why they stopped inviting us to councils. The stars outside Earth's sky were quiet again. But the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way. Not as a child species, not as a wild card, but as something far more unsettling. A civilization that laughed when war was declared. Because it had already finished the lesson.